So just kind of tell the story here. My name is Marlin Wakeman, M-A-R-L-I-N-W-A-K-E-M-A-N. I'm 24 years old, from Stuart, Florida, born and raised. And I was bit by a shark 2 weeks ago in the southern Bahamas. I was going to get back on the boat in the marina, and it was low tide, and there was a lot of surge going on that day. And when I went to take my step onto the boat, I didn't take as much time as I should have, and I ended up in the water hanging on to the cockpit of the boat. When I got bit, I was pulling myself back in, and he grabbed my leg, the first shark did, and pulled me underwater. Kind of scrambled for a second, got my surroundings in check and realized what was going on. And I got my left hand back up on the boat, and at that time the other shark came and hit me on my right side, on my right shoulder. And then after that I was able to pull myself back up in the boat, thank goodness, and call for help. Luckily my captain was nearby and got some help pretty quick and was able to get stitched up in the Bahamas. And thankful I'm here to tell the story, but pretty crazy experience.
Where'd you get stitched up at the Bahamas exactly?
I don't know exactly where the clinic was, but it was about 10 to 15 miles from where the marina was, so it was a decent car ride to get there.
On Long Island.
And then there's a video of you later that night that everyone should have. If you don't have it, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the video just to provide context.
So that was when we got out of the vehicle, and that was right after I got stoned up and still a little loopy off all the pain meds they gave me. And then my buddies helped me get back onto the boat. They offered to put me in a motel, but I didn't really want to stay in a motel by myself, and went down to go hang out with my buddies back on the boat that night, and flew out the next morning.
So how'd you arrange the flight to come here?
The owner of the boat that I was working for, they were going to get a private flight, I think a couple days later. But since I got injured, they decided to move it up a couple days, and they called the King Air, and we got a flight out of there the next morning.
And then how did you know to come to St. Mary's?
So my dad, he luckily had a contact, John Robinson.
Dr. John Robinson.
Yes, sir. So he gave him a text. He was a surgeon here years ago. I went to school with his son, and they recommended Dr. Borrego. Yes, sir. And yeah, he got me stitched up, and probably the best guy for it. So I got very, very lucky when it comes to that.
Marlin, sorry, can you take us back to the marina, because your dad was kind of explaining why there's so many sharks there. So can you describe what that's like? Because we don't understand.
Yeah. So flying fish.
Tell us again about slipping off the boat one more time.
Will do. Yeah. So that marina in particular, out of all the marinas I've been to in my entire life of working on boats, that exact marina is the worst marina I've ever seen. There's at all times 20 sharks roaming around. So they have a fillet table right there in the middle of the marina, and whenever everyone goes out and kills a bunch of fish, they come back and they throw all their carcasses right there, and you can walk on their heads almost. So it's a pretty crazy thing to see, and I've always kind of thought about it. Me and my buddies were talking about, like, man, if you fell in here, like, you are done. Like, you're not even gonna have a second to really react. So that being said, we talked about it and kind of knew that if it happened, it would be really, really quick. And so, yeah, when I went to go step on the boat surged. My foot slipped off the covering board, and when I ended up in the water, I pretty much knew what was going to happen. And when he bit me, I knew what was going on. There wasn't a second of doubt in my mind of what it was or what was happening. And that's when I was holding on to the covering board, and he grabbed me, pulled my head underwater, and then let go of me. I got really lucky. He didn't head shake or hold on for a while. And then that's when I was able to get back up to the surface, get my hand back on the boat. That's when the other one tried to bite me. And then luckily he did not grab onto me, and I was able to get myself back up into the boat.
So talk about pulling yourself back into the boat with those kinds of injuries.
Yeah, it was, at that point I had so much adrenaline going through my body that it was like a fight or flight kind of thing. Luckily I was able to pull myself in. Luckily it was me and not, somebody that wasn't able to, pull themselves completely up into a boat. So that's another thing too. If it was an older, owner, or, you know, an older lady or somebody, you know, maybe a little intoxicated, it would have been probably pretty quick if I had to say that. But yeah, I mean, I got back into the boat and kind of assessed what happened, looked at my leg. It wasn't really bleeding yet. It was kind of, you know, all mangled, and I knew I got hit back here, but it didn't really hurt compared to my leg. And that's when nobody was on the dock as well. There was no one that saw it, no witnesses. So that was another thing that was, you know, I got very lucky that I was able to get out in that exact time and didn't have another one bite me or pull me back under.
So you just started screaming for help?
Yeah, well, my captain just went inside, so I opened up the door and just started yelling his name. And once I saw that he saw me and he saw my wounds, I basically just laid down, put my leg up, and just tried to calm down. I remember there was a sailboat guy that came around, and I just remember trying to be calm, and he was like, he's bleeding out, like freaking out, and I was basically like, hey, like, can we get this guy away from me, because this is freaking me out a little bit.
Were you so when it tried to pull you back under? Did you have like a light flashing before your eyes moment?
Not really. It all happened so fast that it was just like, you know, next thing I knew, my head was underwater, and I knew what was going on. So it wasn't like I was really scared at that moment. I knew what was happening. So in my head, I knew I had to get out as quick as possible. Yeah. And then
You're making this sound all very easy peasy. Like, I fell in, I got bit by a couple sharks, and I just pulled myself back out. I mean, can you maybe describe a little bit about what are we talking about? How hard is it to pull yourself out of that boat?
So, I mean, it's a full, you know, if my arms were completely above my head like this, you know, it was a full pull up to get back into the boat. Yeah, I mean, my head is just out of the water and my arms are hanging onto the covering board to do that. So it was, yeah, that's another thing that my mom just said. I was in a 61 Garlington, and that style boat, in the back, the covering boards or the gunnels are much lower than, let's say, a 60-foot Viking. So I got very lucky in that part too, because if it was a 60-foot Viking, I might not have been able to reach the covering board to pull myself back in. So at that point, I just would have been ripped apart by sharks, and it would have been horrible. But
Can you describe just like what the pain felt like?
Yeah. So when I got back into the boat, nothing really hurt at first. I got my leg up, elevated. My captain got a tourniquet on. Nothing hurt at that point. And then they got me in a wheelbarrow going up to the car, and that's kind of when I started feeling everything. It was bleeding a lot at that point, and adrenaline started wearing off a little bit. And then we got into the van, and when I was in the van, they took gauze, and I remember my captain, he looked at me and he was like, hey man, this is going to hurt really bad. And I was like, you know, whatever. And they shoved the gauze in my leg, I'm pretty sure, and I was like in and out of consciousness. I've never passed out from pain. That was the first time I've ever passed out strictly from pain. So yeah, no, it hurt really, really bad once the adrenaline wore off, and you know, I was headed to the clinic. Definitely a lot of pain. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I asked my captain, like, legitimately. I was just like, hey man, like, I don't really want to. I wasn't freaking out, like, oh, don't let me die. I was just like, hey man, like, I really don't want to die right now. Like, this ain't it. You know,
what type of sharks were they? What sizes do you?
They were Caribbean reef sharks. I would guess the ones in there they're pretty big. So I would say 7 foot, you know, 5 to 7 feet, somewhere in that range for sure.
Can you tell us about your recovery process, your healing journey so far?
Yeah, so I guess he put 2 puncture wounds or something like that on my kneecap. So the cuts didn't really hurt as much as that. So I couldn't really bend my leg, and the first couple of days after surgery was really rough, you know, with all the swelling and just any type of little movement or, you know, something hit my leg, it was a lot of pain. But after about 5 to 6 days, that kind of started to go down and started getting a little better day by day.
Do you plan on going back on the boat anytime soon?
Oh yeah, as soon as I can, for sure.
You're gonna go back to that specific spot again?
Yeah, most likely. It's awesome place in the Bahamas. Long Island's a great spot, you know, for fishing and diving and all that. Unfortunately, you know, they feed those sharks and they got them like pets, and sharks aren't pets, you know. They're an apex predator, and if they bite you, it can be pretty ugly. I got, you know, very lucky, and it could have turned out to be a completely different, you know, outcome. So to be sitting here standing in front of y'all is I got very lucky, yeah.
Has it affected your mindset at all to have a near-death experience? Or outlook on
A little bit, not a whole lot, I would say. I knew what would happen if that ever did happen, and yeah, to be that close to if it hit my artery, which I know it was very close, it could have been, I probably would have bled out there in a couple minutes, but it hasn't really affected me too much. It's pretty close to it, so I don't know if maybe I'll have some nightmares here and there, but I think I'll be all right.
You're saying you're gonna go back. Are you gonna do anything? Would you do anything differently when you go back? Would you make any different choices?
Yeah, so I would just maybe take another 2 seconds to be a little bit more careful when I jumped on the boat. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, what marina was it exactly? Did you tell us?
Flying Fish Marina in Long Island, Bahamas. It's a southern island down there.
And are you currently on crutches, and how long will you have to be? Or?
I'm on crutches still, but I think within the next week I'll probably be walking completely by myself. I hope so.
So you were just jumping off of like a dock or something?
Yeah, it was low tide and there was like a big swell, so the boat was constantly moving, and I had like a little 3-foot jump. I was putting stuff on the dock when I was getting on and off it, and the couple times before that I was going up to the bow of the boat because I could just step right off the boat right onto the dock. There was no change in height. And then the third time I kind of got a little lazy. I was getting back on the boat and I was actually about to go down and take a nap, so I was like, I'll just make the little jump, and next thing I know I was in the water getting bit by sharks.
What crossed your mind the moment you knew you were going down? I mean, that
The moment I knew I wasn't going in the boat and I was going in the water, oh shit, I'm gonna get bit by a shark. Like I knew immediately, like as soon as I got wet, pretty much it was, this ain't good. I'm gonna get bit, and then I got bit probably, I don't know, a millisecond later after I thought that thought. So I knew what was coming, and I really just got lucky that shark didn't grab on and head shake, because if he did that, he would have shredded my leg a lot more, and then who knows how much longer he would have held me there, and then probably would have gave other sharks more time to come along, and then it would have just been a frenzy. So.
I bet you won't make that mistake again. You won't be lazy.
No, ma'am.
What time of the day was it?
About 3:30.
What would you say to people who are going to hear this story and it's going to freak them out about sharks, make them more afraid to go in the water? I mean, you put yourself in these situations. You speak
Yep.
fish, right? You're in the water. You're used to it.
Yeah.
I bet you maybe assumed you were going to get bit by a shark at some point in your life.
Yeah, it's definitely been in the back of my head.
But does this make you have more respect for them? Do you want people to? I mean, it bit you and left, right? It didn't
Yeah.
continue to attack.
So that's one thing too. So I've been surfing and diving for most of my life, and I've had many shark encounters diving, and I just thought it was kind of funny how with all that, the one time I get bit by a shark is when I slip off the dock and fall in the water. So no, I've always respected sharks. With you have to, because they can turn around and bite you within a second, and everything could change. But yeah, just I don't really know. It's hard. It's just hard to say. Like before this happened, I've always had a respect for sharks. It's just when you're diving with them and when you're surfing with them, it's a lot different because you kind of have a chance. I'm watching them before they're coming up to me, or I can give them the fish off of my pole spear. That time I slipped in the water off a dock in a marina where you do not want to do that, and ended up in a shark den, literally. So it's hard to say, because if you're going and you're diving and you're surfing, it's one thing, but if you're walking around a dock and you fall in the water, that's a completely other thing. The sharks are going to bite you out of reaction. They're not going to bite you because they're looking at you and they go, oh, that's a human, let me go bite them. But when you're diving and surfing, they got a little bit more time to evaluate you and see what you really are, and maybe make that decision in their head that, no, I don't want to eat that. So I would tell people, don't be scared. Just keep it in your mind that they're an apex predator, and you don't want to end up in their mouth, essentially.
Don't feed the sharks.
Yeah, that's one thing with the Bahamas. They really gotta, with their laws over there, with the not killing sharks, and all that, something really needs to happen, because there's all this stuff where people are saying, there's sharks are endangered. Well, you haven't been there, and there's no shortage of them things. And they're trained to, splash. They're going to bite. So, that kind of goes back to, luckily it was me and not, a young child or an elderly person.
Describe what it felt like when you got bit the first and second time, and also you
Yeah.
said you were prepared. You were sort of like, for a second, all right, I'm about to get bit.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. I didn't really feel like sharpness at all or like my skin getting cut. It was more just like something, clinched me around my knee and just pulled me in. A lot of pressure, I would say. And then the one on my shoulder kind of just felt like a punch more than anything. It just kind of like hit me pretty hard. I think he kind of like hit me with his nose and then had his mouth open and kind of like grazed me back here, because he never really bit me. But yeah, just a lot of pressure, really. You don't really feel the, teeth going into you, I wouldn't say, if that makes sense.
You said later that night you went and hung out with your friends, even though can you tell us more about what their reaction was?
Yeah, so my buddy Alex, he was like, so they were out diving when it all happened. We got back from lunch and they were diving outside the marina, just trying to get some snappers and whatever. And so they had no idea it happened. They're like, two of my really good friends work on the boat right next to me. And so I come back and I was like, I want to go hang out with my friends. I don't want to go to this motel. And we go down there and he's just like in shock, like, dude, what the hell? Like, you got bit by a shark. And I'm sitting there like, dude, I know, it's crazy. Like, it was a lot to take in, like, right there. But no, we were all just in shock, kind of, and trying to take it in. And, unfortunately, what we were speaking about the whole week before it happened kind of talked it into existence. But, is what it is.
What kind of work were you doing on the boat that day?
I was, that exact day, I was just cleaning up. We got back from lunch with the owners and my captain, and we were just having a relaxed day, really. Fished a couple days before that, and yeah, just organizing and getting stuff ready to go fishing again. So yeah, just basic stuff.
How long were you in the Bahamas at that point?
1 week.
Okay, and you flew out there to work on the boat.
Brought the boat over from Stuart. We went to Chubb to Compass to Conception to Long Island.
Are you from Stuart?
Yeah, born and raised.
And you saw around 20 sharks in the water.
At all times, yeah. Probably even more, honestly.
You were able to get to St. Mary's that night.
Nope, next day.
Oh, next day. What
That night, the next day, probably what, 11?
11:45. I had you here by 12:15.
Yeah. So yeah, we're here around noon.
Can we speak with one of the doctors? You can just maybe tell us his injuries,
Yep.
possibly, what happened?
So this is Dr. Borrego. He's a trauma surgeon. He's also done extensive shark bite research that he can also tell you about, like 10 years ago or so.
Good morning. I'm Robert Borrego. I'm the trauma medical director here at St. Mary's.
How do you spell
I've been here for 33 years.
How do you spell your last name?
Borrego. I've been at St. Mary's for 33 years, and because of where we are, we're on the coast, a lot of water sports, a lot of people in the water, and this is an area where the sharks migrate through here. So we do see a number of shark bites, a few every year, I would say. And we've gained some experience because of that. And we've had other people that have come here from the Bahamas with shark bites as well. Transfer center, and the day before that there was a patient in Long Island, Bahamas, a shark bite. And I told them, by all means, bring him here as soon as possible. The Bahamas always do a good job in the damage control of a shark bite. Initially, with a shark bite, what you want to do is control any bleeding and tissue damage. And I think that in Marlin's case, the Bahamians did that. They took him in and they sort him up, damage control style. And I think that what they're trying to accomplish at that time is to stop the bleeding. And then I knew also that he was in a marina where they're feeding sharks, and the waters are not the cleanest. Even though it's beautiful and everything, there's all kinds of stuff in the water, and that he's at risk for infection. And when I got a better story, I knew that it was around the knee and the joints and possibly even near a vessel. So I knew that it would be important for him to come and to get the wounds reassessed and remanaged. And it's what we did. When he came in, I saw they had a very large wound. The whole circumference, it was a big shark, Marlin, because the circumference of that wound had to be at least
About a foot or like 14 inches, I'd say.
at least 14, 15 inches. It was the circumference of the wound. So he was probably bitten by at least a 7-footer or an 8-foot shark. The one here, I'm not sure. I think he's right. Maybe there was a graze. But the wound, we took him to the surgery, and I was concerned because he went over the kneecap. And luckily, that same day that I was bringing him to surgery, Dr. Ketchum, he's an orthopedic surgeon, happened to be in the operating suite. And I got him, I spoke to him, and he agreed to come in surgery with me. And when we opened the wounds, we took the stitches out that they had done in the Bahamas just to clean everything out, check for infection, check for any foreign bodies, and check for any deeper damage to any blood vessel or nerve or the knee joint itself. We did find some puncture wounds in the kneecap, in the capsule. He'll tell you better about it. And we opened the wound and the joint up. We super duper washed everything out with a lot of irrigation. We gave him, the minute that he got here from the Bahamas, we gave him the antibiotics that we would use based on the previous research that we've done on shark bites. So we treated him with a broad spectrum antibiotics directed at the shark bites that one may get from sharks in a which tend to have a dirtier mouth, a more contaminated mouth, than if you got bitten way offshore in the clean blue water. So because of those antibiotics, and then we irrigated his wound with a solution containing antibiotics as well. We repaired the joint injury, and then we closed all the wounds up in a better fashion, not damage control at this point. We have more time, he's not bleeding, he's stable. So we took our time and did a nice closure of the wounds. We put him in an immobilizer and we told him, take it easy. And that will catch him. We'll give him some instruction as to what knee functions and rehabilitation and physical therapy he may need. But the story that he's telling, I've been dealing with this a lot, and I've seen some people that have not done as well. And from hearing the story, it shocks me that he was able to get out of that water. And I think I know exactly the type of boat he's talking about. I've been in that situation when I had a 40-foot Cabo Express, and I've been in the water and I had to get up, and it's really hard. It's really, really, really hard to get on a boat when you're in the water. So the fact that there's 20 sharks in there, and you were able to get out of there and still have a leg, is amazing. And I think that it all goes to say how quickly he reacted and that he didn't panic. Would he have panicked and missed the carving board and missed the gunnel, the sharks would have been biting him all over the place. So even though the wounds right now they're covered and they don't look like much, but the experience that this kid went through, it has to be, it gives me chills to know. Because I know, I fish a lot myself. I'm in the water a lot, go to the Bahamas a lot, and I can envision in my eyes exactly what he went through. And I think that, it's amazing that he did so well. The Bahamians, the credit to them, that they took him quickly and were able to fix him, stop the bleeding. And then also credit to his father, who was smart enough to call us and bring him here so we could make sure that he has a full and healthy recovery.
And so moving forward, you think full recovery in a year, it's almost like it didn't happen?
He should have a full recovery. The joint, he's a healthy young guy, so his injury should heal 100%. Shouldn't have any problems.
When do you think it'll be fully healed?
I would let Dr. Cashman tell you that because it's more the soft tissue that I repair. Those will be, the stitches are out. We took them out today. There were a lot of stitches. We took them out. The wounds are healing nicely. I would say that in another 2 weeks, those scars will be all healed. He cannot go in the sun because the scar will get hypertrophic, or he could get like a keloid. But the issue is the knee joint. And the knee joint may take a little longer, but Dr. Cashman could tell you better about that.
What's the biggest risk with the shark bites?
The biggest risk is bleeding. obviously. So that's what I tell everyone. You know, it's key. Everyone should have. I have tourniquets in my car. I have a tourniquet in my backpack, and I have a tourniquet on my boat. I have tourniquets everywhere. If he would have hit an artery, we have people that have had artery injuries, arterial injuries in the Bahamas. And without a tourniquet, there is no way to survive it. You have to carry a tourniquet because the biggest concern is exsanguination. And if he hits the femoral artery, and where his bites are, they just barely miss the femoral artery. The femoral artery, you will lose blood in a matter of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. Your whole blood volume will be in the water. So you have a very limited chance of surviving that unless somebody could put a tourniquet on it and stop the bleeding. The secondary to that, then it depends if it injured a nerve or a joint. Those are concerns also. And then later on, in the more later fashion, is infection. The sharks have a dirty mouth with a bunch of bacteria. That's what we did the research, or we cultured the sample of their mouth. We grew the bacteria in the lab, and then we identified what kind of shark had what type of bacteria and which antibiotics were the best for those bacteria. So we have done all that, and that is the other concern. And the reason why I wanted his father to bring him here, mostly because the bleeding has stopped, was to examine the wound and make sure they had appropriate antimicrobial coverage.
So just to clarify, you said that the shark, based on the size of the wound, was likely, you said, I think you said 7 feet. Was that the wound on the leg?
Yes.
And that was the more severe?
Yes. At least 7. I would say it was at least a 7-footer that bit him.
Look, that he did, you brought it up, yeah, it was close to an artery.
You can see where the wound is, right next to the artery. A little bit more inward towards the leg, the shark would have been biting on his artery.
And you said it go through the kneecap, the bite?
It did, yes.
You said for your part that in terms of healing, he can't go into the sun, obviously makes his living in the sun. How long is that period of time before he can get back to his regular work?
So it all depends on how concerned he is about how good he wants to look. If he wants to have a beautifully looking scar, he should keep it out of the sun for at least a year. Because the minute that you have a scar and you go in the sun, then that ultraviolet radiation makes the scar grow. And sometimes you get a keloid. I think that he's probably not going to be too worried about that. So I'm going to guess that he'll be going in the sun, and all he has to do really either wear one of those long spandex type long garment, or heavy duty sunblock, and just keep putting it on every time you're in the sun. After a year, then the issue's done and he should be okay.
How many shark bites have you treated this year?
This year he is like the 3rd one, I want to say. We treat a few every year, 6, 7, sometimes more a year, depending on what's going on. But the sharks do migrate through this coast, especially in the winter time. The black-tip sharks are right off the beach where people are swimming, and that's when we get most of the shark bites. But Florida, as you know, Florida is the #1 shark bite place in the world as far as the number of bites. Not the lethality of the bites, but the number of bites. Florida's #1 in the world.
Should he stay out of the water for a certain period of time as well?
The water, actually, once the stitches came out today, and those the little puncture holes from the stitches should be healed and closed in like another 3 days, and then he could go in the salt water. It's no problem. He should be fine.
How long was he in the hospital?
He stayed 1 night in the hospital. Yeah.
To speak it all to, like, you know, he brought it up, like, hey, there's a lot of sharks. You said people feed them. So when he fell in, was it based off potentially experience that the sharks thought, hey, this was someone throwing a piece of food in the water, I'm going to go do an exploratory bite? Was that what startled them potentially?
He kind of mentioned a little bit about it. We get the types of people that get bitten that we get. The most common one is people that are swimming on the beach, off the surf, and the sharks are coming through slashing bait, and the water is sandy and murky, and the sharks bite the person, literally because they don't even see them, and they might mistake them for bait. The other way that people get bitten around here is spearfishing. When people are spearfishing, there's 2 things that happen. The blood in the water excites the shark. And also when you have a fish at the end of your spear, that fish is thrashing, and it's sending out these electromagnetic signals that the shark notice, and the shark come and see what's in distress, because the sharks are very lazy animals. They want to get whatever is the easiest lunch. And when they know that a fish is hurt, that's what they go for. So when you spear a fish, you're literally almost calling the shark in. So those are people also that get bitten. Most of the time, those are the two types.
He just needs stitches on both wounds?
Yes.
Would you be able to quantify the blood loss?
For what we did,
Yeah, after what you did.
for what we did, no, minimal blood loss. The blood loss was probably initially when he got bitten in the Bahamas, but not here.
There's no way to determine how much from that.
You could lose. I mean, the problem is that if you're he luckily got out of the water quickly. But what happens to most people when you get bitten by a shark in the water, especially the salt water washes away the clot. So while your body's trying to make a blood clot, which will stop the bleeding, the salt water is washing it out. So you could bleed really rapidly in the water. In the size of that wound, if he was not able to get out of the water, he could lose significant blood, even though he didn't hit a major vessel. Of course, if you hit a major vessel, then you're going to lose liters per minute. The heart pumps out 5 liters per minute in most people. So when your heart pumps in 1 minute, it could pump a liter of blood. 4 to 5 liters, actually, 4 to 5 liters of blood. So if you think about that, and the femoral artery is one of the major arteries in the body. So you could lose, in 1 minute, you could lose 4 liters of blood.
You guys good on Dr. Borrego? Yes. I also have some pictures of him doing the shark bite research. If you're interested in those, happy to share.
He's on YouTube.
Did you mention that you pioneered the research? I don't think you mentioned you pioneered this research for the shark bites.
So, well, what happened with it? So she's asking me why did we do the research? It was about, I think it was like 2010 or so, 2012. I don't remember exactly. We had a little toddler, like 3 or 4 years old, that was bitten by a shark really badly here off the coast. Exactly what I said, he was swimming with his parents, and a shark bit him really badly. The entire leg was in the shark's mouth. He was here for a very long time. The child had some bad injuries, but the injuries became infected. And one day, the father asked me what type of bacteria are in the shark's mouth. And I said, I really don't know. And what we usually do is that we treat them with real broad spectrum antibiotics to cover everything. But I told him, I don't know what bacteria they are, but I'll look it up. And I went to do the literature search, and there was no literature. No one had really done any work at all in the whole history that you could go back and figure out what bacteria were in the shark's mouth. There were 2 papers. One was one paper from Australia, and they had cultured the anal gland of a great white. And then there was another one from Brazil that they had cultured a dead tiger shark. But no one had cultured live sharks to see what was in their mouths. So I saw it as an opportunity to gain some knowledge. And being here, and being so easy to catch sharks, we set out, we went out, we caught a bunch of sharks. We didn't kill any sharks, we didn't hurt any sharks. We caught the sharks, we immobilized them by rubbing their snout and stuff. And then we took with a long probe, so we don't get too close. We swabbed the gum and the teeth. And then in the lab right here at St. Mary's Hospital, we grew the bacteria and then analyzed them. I had a PhD, 2 PhDs working on the paper. And we analyzed the data that we collected over a matter of like 2 years and figure out what's the best way to treat shark wound infections. That's how it happened.
It's pretty insane.
We talk, you sports. Anything else for Dr. Borrego? You sports medicine? Orthopedics?
surgeon.
Yeah. All right, so we talked to the orthopedic surgeon. You can talk about the kneecap. All right, say and spell. I don't want to say your name wrong, but say and spell your first and last name and you'll be good. Sure.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Rami Elkechin. It's R-A-M-I, last name E-L-K-H-E-C-H-E-N. One of the orthopedic surgeons here at St. Mary's. I've been here for 10 years treating patients.
So tell us how you got involved in the case. I know Dr. Borrego talked about it, and then what you saw when you got into the knee.
So I was operating here at St. Mary's, like Dr. Borrego was saying. He called me in to go see Marlin's knee when he came in the operating room. He was concerned about a disruption to the joint capsule, and as well as possibly some bony injuries to the knee. So I came in, and so a lot of times, as you can imagine, with shark bite injuries, they're all unique in their own way. A lot of the first part of the procedures are assessing and exploring the wounds to try and assess the damage. And in that assessment, we did notice that there was a puncture wound to the capsule, the joint surface itself, as well as, like Dr. Borrego was saying, there was a little puncture into the back of the kneecap or the patella. And so those were the two reasons why I was involved in the case.
Go ahead.
What has his recovery been like so far?
So far, so good. So during surgery, we basically, like Dr. Borrego was saying, we washed out. The most important part of the procedure is really exploring the joint capsule, actually extending the laceration or the opening in the joint capsule so you could thoroughly wash out the joint surface. Because one of the major complications would be bacteria getting inside the knee joint, and bacteria loves cartilage, and it could be a very serious and devastating consequence. And so that's why we take those types of injuries so seriously, especially in a young patient like Marlin. He's got many more years ahead of him, and we don't want the cartilage to be eaten up or debrided by the bacteria, and he would end up with arthritis at an early age, and we didn't want that. So we washed out the joint capsule, closed that up nicely for him, thoroughly washed it out. In addition, we also explored the puncture wound to the back of the kneecap, and we were able just to kind of clean that out nicely for him and make sure that bone doesn't get exposed or infected as well.
What's the timeline of full recovery?
So as far as recovery, so usually it's about, when it's involving a joint capsule injury, it's about 4 to 6 weeks for full recovery. There was a lot of forces imparted to his knee, as you could imagine, from a shark bite. So part of this is just a soft tissue injury, him recovering from all those forces that were clamped down on his knee. That being said, I wasn't underwhelmed, but I did make a joke to Dr. Borrego that the shark didn't like the way that Marlin tasted, because he could have done a lot more damage, honestly. So.
Is that the first shark bite you treated?
We actually treat a lot of marine injuries here at St. Mary's, whether they're shark bites or propeller injuries or boating type injuries. So I've been involved in a couple different shark bite injuries.
Anything else for him? Okay. Marlin's parents?
Yes. I'll get up and say something.
Hang on, I'm gonna pull this apart.
I've actually got a lot to say.
Give him a time.
Well,
Yes, ready?
Yeah, you have to give him a time limit. Rivers is on camera, shouting.
All right, so to say spell first and last
Okay.
name so that they
Here, go ahead, honey.
Go.
Go ahead.
My name's Captain Rufus Wakeman, Rufus Wakeman.
And Melinda Wakeman, Melynda, Wakeman, Wakeman, Mom and Dad, and we're just very grateful to be able to have the story, that Marlin gets to tell his story, because of these guys and all of the people involved from the beginning of it till the end. Everything just couldn't have fallen in a better place to be in such a bad place. We were blessed to have people there that did the right thing by getting him somewhere really quick, and the tourniquets and the guys on the boat and the owners of the boat, and getting him back quickly. And the main thing was, because many years ago I was an ER nurse at Jackson Memorial, and I knew that we had to get him home to get his wounds cleaned. And he landed in, of all places, St. Mary's with the shark doctor. So.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing all the way around, and to have both of them here, we're so grateful for you guys. And it's a story to tell, and thank goodness we're here to tell about it.
Yes.
It was, the call was kind of can't really describe it. You just kind of, you go in shock mode, but I felt like I'm just a million little pieces all of a sudden. And I get it together, and I think that's when my old trauma training came in of what we're going to do, and let's, you know, and how is he, and what do we need to do to get him out of there and home. And then we've just been blessed, so we're just happy every day, and he's been a great patient. And he's a tough kid, or young man too.
Speaking of the call, when did you find out? Did you find out while he was in the wheelbarrow?
I found out while he was at the clinic.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you start that over.
No, we found out, I got the call, I was in Savannah with my other daughter that had flown into Savannah to meet a great aunt, and we were having a low country boil and got the phone call. We were sitting on the marsh, and we were like, well, how bad was it? And then I'm thinking where we are. I knew he was so far away, and I didn't realize that he was too far for rescue. And that's when we kind of went into our kind of fell apart moment. And then, but as soon as we saw the pictures, the owners of the boat were great. The wife kept contact with us and sent pictures. And as soon as I saw that the bleeding had stopped, and he was loaded up with morphine, and he was very happy and smiling, and everybody said, wow, he took that good. I'm thinking, like, probably pumped full of morphine, right?
Yep.
And then his dad talked to him. You
Yep.
talked to him.
So, I was out fishing when this happened, and I left my phone at home, which doesn't happen very often. So I got home at like 7 o'clock at night, and it happened at 3:30 to 4, something like that. And I sat down in my chair and started going through the messages and the text, and there's a number I didn't recognize, and I opened it, and it's, hi, this is Lynn from the bucket list, and Marlin fell off the dock and got bit by a shark. And as a parent, I can tell you that time really does stand still, and everything in the periphery goes to a blur, and it's the worst text you can get. After I've spent my life on the water, I've been a captain and a fisherman. I was born and raised I was born at Good Sam, but in 1962, so I've spent my life on the water, and I'm very familiar with sharks. They're a magnificent organism and a highly sophisticated beast, and need all the respect we can give them, but I know what they're capable of, and I have several friends who have been bitten, and it's a shocking revelation when you see that, you know, some of the wounds these people have had to endure, and now it's my son. It's our son, and it's just scary. But, you know, thank God, I will be forever indebted to the crew on the boat for putting a tourniquet on him, Dr. Lightbourne over in Long Island, Bahamas at the clinic, who literally, you know, closed the wound and stopped the bleeding. And it's, you know, I liken it to a field hospital as to where they're just going to patch you up and get you on a plane. I also called Dr. John Robinson, who I grew up with over in Palm Beach. And John used to work here. He's now retired. And he was able to contact Dr. Borrego here and kind of get the wheels rolling. And when we got here, when Marlin ended up at the airport the next day, I was there. We picked him up. He comes off the plane, down the down the stairs and into a wheelchair and into my truck, and we're here in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. And you know, as soon as Dr. Borrego walked in the room, I was like, oh God, here we go. At least we got the man with the plan. Because, you know, it's not often that a shark attack victim gets treated by a shark attack doctor. So we were very fortunate there, and I will be forever grateful and forever eternally grateful for all of your help and so forth.
You mentioned that he had texted you from, I think, in the clinic. Could you tell us, like, what he had texted you?
Well, I got a text from the owners of the boat's wife.
Yeah.
And she said, hi, this is Lynn from the bucket list. Marlin fell off the boat, got bit by a shark. We're at the clinic. We got the bleeding stopped, and we'll keep you abreast of the situation. So, You know, literally at that point, you know, it's the most feared text. You know, we spend our lives on the water. I'm out there a lot. He's out there a lot. This is something that can happen, and it's always in the back of our minds, especially him because he's in the water. I've been over there with he and his friends, and they've been diving. And, you know, I'm 100 feet away or 75 or 80 or 150 feet away in the boat, and I'm just sitting there listening to music, keeping an eye on all the kids. And then I see the body language, and I know that, all right, something's up. And I just floor the boat over there, and he'll come over the back of the boat like a seal escaping a shark or a killer whale for that matter. And he's had a lot of close calls, you know, where he's got some GoPro footage of a shark literally between his legs eating the snapper off of his pole spear. And that happens a lot over there. You know, the Bahamas has a no-kill shark policy, and they feed the sharks in the marina, and as Marlin said, they're pets. Shark's not a pet. You know, this is a really dangerous animal, and you know, they need to maybe make some policy changes over there, not let people clean the fish in the marina and so forth, and put the bait, all of your carcasses in some buckets and transport it to a different part of the island, or put it in a boat that's going offshore tomorrow and dump it out to sea. Because, you know, where people and sharks meet, generally it's not a good outcome. And, you know, we have a terrible problem out here with sharks that are involved with all of the wrecks and the reefs, and when the boat pulls up, it's like ringing the dinner bell, and the sharks show up, and you can't catch a fish. So you might lose 20 snappers to get your limit of 10, things of that nature. So it becomes a conservation issue. There's no more commercial shark fishery here in Florida, and you know, arguably maybe there should be. They are an apex predator, they multiply, they have no natural predators, so, you know, it might be time to readdress the situation.
Did you ever expect your son to actually be bitten?
Maybe. I mean, this is something that if you live your life on the water, every day you're on the water, your odds increase. So as much as you pray that it doesn't happen, you have to be ready for it. And, you know, thanks to John Robinson and his quick thinking and getting a hold of, you know, the hospital and giving us the, you know, carte blanche, if you will. I mean, we rolled into the ER the next day and, oh, hey, come on, let's go. Let's get him back there. You know, it's not like they didn't expect us. So I'm, you know, once again, very, very grateful for that.
Your only son?
My only son.
Or daughter?
I have 2 daughters. Our oldest daughter's name is Marina. And she's going through her final year of anesthetist. She'll have a doctorate in nursing, and she lives in Chicago, and she's married to an anesthesiologist.
She was an ER nurse.
Yep, and she was an ER nurse. She went to University of Florida and worked at Shands Hospital for a year, and then JFK, and then moved to Chicago and worked at Northwestern.
So, just one thing, you know, people say, oh, well, I survived a shark bite. Your son survived 2 of them.
He did, you know, I mean, he's got some game. You know, he's had the experience, he's in the water, he knows how these things work, he knows, you know, like he said, you know, we're walking up and down the dock kind of joking about this. You know, what would happen if you fell in? Well, it probably wouldn't be good. Well, the outcome is not good. But fortunately, we're lucky, and due to a particular chain of events that was set in motion that day, he's sitting here right now. So, you know, we're very, very grateful and thankful for all the powers that be that got us to this point.
So you've been to that marina before, when you were joking about it.
Well, he was, you know, like he said earlier, that, you know, when you pull in, we have a lot of friends over the years who've been there. Now, when you wake up in the morning and start walking around in your boat, these sharks come to your boat. And Jeremy had the picture of, there's, in the frame, you can see 13 sharks right there off the back of the boat. And so there's probably anywhere from 2 dozen to 3 dozen sharks in that marina pretty much at any given time. And they're feeding them tuna carcasses, they're feeding them mahi carcasses and wahoo and snappers and groupers. So you've created a feeding station for sharks. It's not like tarpon at Robbie's down in the Keys or Sailfish Marina in Singer Island where we got a bunch of jacks. These are sharks, and so you know it's a terrifying thing when you fall in. But fortunately he kept his cool. He didn't panic. He realized he had to complete the task at hand, which is survival. And he got himself out of the water, and God bless him. And I don't know. Well, I'd have just been shredded because, come on, look at me. I'm not doing a chin up, And so, but like he said, thank God it was him and not an owner or a child or somebody, an elderly person. And he was able to live to tell the tale and has the scars to prove it.